All right, welcome to the Stop Money Anxiety Now live podcast, episode number 5, taking one step back to make 2 steps forward to millions. Ooh. Welcome back to another live broadcast of the Stop Money Anxiety Now podcast live, Tuesdays at noon Pacific Standard. I'm your host, Wei Hong from the Six Figure Academy.
And I'm Jessica, also from the Six Figure Academy.
And this is the podcast where we give you real-world tips, strategies, and interviews with some amazing entrepreneurs on how to eliminate destructive money habits and anxiety so that you can create a prosperous and an abundant lifestyle in business and in life, which is what lifestyle means, right? Free of financial stress and worries. So anyway, how are you, Jessica? We just had an amazing week.
Yeah.
I would like to hear because you actually left as well. We both went to a speaking engagement, a speaking gig that we have called Icon Summit. Mm-hmm. But then you actually spun off and went on your little festival journey as well, too, right?
Well, not so much getting to enjoy the festival, but working it. That was really nice. Festival season in California has kicked off officially.
I didn't know there was a festival season.
Oh yeah. It's like a whole market now. Have you stepped into stores and?
I've been living on a rock. No, under a rock.
Well, you don't like
on
shopping.
A rock.
Yeah.
I don't go shopping either, right?
Well, no, the thing is that if you look online a lot now, it's like, festival season is here, and they have an entire category dedicated. Well, for girls, categories are dedicated to you can wear this.
When did this start happening?
Coachella. Coachella really started picking up. I noticed it when I was in high school. Now it's like 2 weekends.
Which was like two months ago.
Funny.
For those of you who don't know, the reason why Jessica is a co-host on the show is because she brings a perspective to the show that I don't have, and most of our guests probably don't have, unless actually we're probably going to get some millennials in pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
But she represents that millennial side of things, so it's always interesting to hear. Not only date myself, but also to hear how things are coming from your perspective. But so festival season, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a huge thing. I don't like all of my friends now, and even people who are like in their early 30s, going to festivals is the new deal for sure. In California, especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. I'll see what that's all about, I guess, later this week.
Yeah.
You got me speaking at a Lucidity Festival
in Santa Barbara. Mm-hmm.
Where I get to talk to a lot of holistic people on
super holistic.
Super holistic. I don't want to use the word hippie because that's from the 60s, right? But
it still applies.
Yeah, holistic people who are expressing themselves freely.
Free-spirited. Holistics.
So I get to talk to them, the business entrepreneur guy gets to go over there and talk to them.
Well, I mean, but I'm really excited for this because it is, at the end of the day, like my coach says, is if you have a bank account, you are your business.
Right.
And so a lot of people in the spiritual community.
Forget that.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been having to adapt to recently. And, with a lot of people in the spiritual community, they want to do a lot of good, and sacrificing themselves tends to be the common, the common feel that's kind of supported too, because they want to know that they're doing good and kind of justify, other means knowing that they're doing good. But I'm really excited for you to come and help them, have more of a better foundation on the free-spirited, holistic lifestyle. So.
Well, I mean, it's easy. The way we look at money is as being energy, and because that community likes to talk about energy and how energy work and source and the universe, which is cool because, I mean, if you look at the world, I mean, just today, I was just down at the Yellow Vase, which is right next to us, and it was empty. I mean, it was like a ghost town, and I was like, what's going on? Usually there's people always there. I walked up to the front door, and it says cash only. Apparently their POS system is down.
Oh.
And it's funny to me because I remember growing up, and, our guest today, Mike, was sitting here already just kind of quietly listening, being patient and polite. I mean, we grew up in a time where if we walk in a store, sometimes they don't take credit card.
Yeah.
It's like cash or check. And I was like, I had to carry on a checkbook, right? And so I looked around, and there was literally nobody in the cafe because because nobody wanted to go to an ATM. Nobody carries around cash.
Yeah.
We forget now, we live in a time where money is no longer represented by something that's physical as often anymore. It's like it's like bits and numbers and what? What is electricity? What is electronics? It's another form of energy.
Yep.
Money has continuously now been coming more and more closer to where it originally came from.
Yeah.
Money.
So do you think like psychologically that's had some impact on our spending habits?
I think
money anxiety?
Yeah, no, I think so. Totally. I mean, that's kind of like the crux of what we do here, right?
Yeah.
Is get people with their understand that if their energy isn't right, guess what? Their money's going to reflect that. Right. So, yeah, I think it's really, and we'll get into a lot more of that. Simply just kind of like, learning about our guest's journey today in terms of where he came from, how he came to today, and some of the pieces around money anxiety that shows up at pretty much every entrepreneur experiences some level of anxiety around money at some point. Why? Because most of us aren't raised as entrepreneurs. And so stepping into that world and taking that brave step into the beyond of what we were raised to do. We were raised to be employees, right, for the most part. And then stepping into that space, it's like, I don't know what to do with myself. And then not being taught about money in the most ideal way possible. I no, don't get me wrong. There are people who have been raised with good money relationships, and structuring and positioning money as a great ally. And those are people who are basically they're being raised on the shoulders of their parents and their grandparents who have gone through that journey that we're helping so many people go through in this lifetime, in this generation, right?
Yeah.
But I found it was fascinating. Every time, and this is not the first time it's happened next door. They've had the POS go down before and had to switch to cash only for a while, and every single time.
More than a day?
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, there was one time it was all day.
Whoa.
And so they ended up closing early because there was nothing going on.
That's crazy.
Right? The world we live in, and it's so weird, I think, that people are still attached to the concept of money and not associating that money with being energy when, in fact, all their behaviors around money is around the fact that it is now basically represented by energy, numbers, bits, electronics, all those different things.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really, really fascinating. But, I'm excited because there's the guy that we're going to have on today, he has a name. This is my buddy Mike. He literally works next door to us here, here in Redondo Beach, and it's fascinating because and our other neighbor is trying to get in on the show, Mr. Brian. There, he's going to start razzing. But Mike, when Mike and I first met, it was cool because I took over the office where he used to be in. He moved next door. They refurbished the building, and then I've ended up taking up that space. And when I got to know him, this is how we first started hanging out. He would come over, and we would have drinks. In fact, I was so tempted that this would be a drinking episode because that's kind of how we started our relationship.
Okay.
So Mike Ward, he's the CEO and owner of Village Runner, which is one of the premier running shoe outfits here in the Redondo Beach area. He also has a location in Manhattan Beach, and at one point also, and we'll hear the story behind this one, had one location in Henderson, Nevada as well. So he actually built the business from one location to 3 different locations at one point. And he's going to be talking about how, it says here on my notes, how it became a prosperous stay-at-home mommy. That's last week. No, how basically he leveraged the power, the willingness to not be, to hold on to things that doesn't serve his long-term goal. In other words, taking one step back in your business and your life so that you can make 2 steps forward to making millions. Okay, what's really cool about this guy is that he's so kicked back in that, and we're pretty honored to have him because he very rarely, if ever, steps out of the shadows behind the scenes to be in public, to put his mark out there. But so this could potentially be part of his legacy, that interview to make it all happen. So anyway, we'll find out more, and we'll hear it directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Hi, Mike.
Hey. Finally got him on. So welcome to the show, Mike. Finally, we were talking about getting you on like a while back, and even before when the idea of the show first came about, I was already thinking about having you on the show. So. How are you?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know you brought in a drink, but I'm sorry we don't have our usual.
Yeah, it's not noon yet.
Yeah. Let me turn it up a little bit here. Okay, cool. Hello? Can you hear me
Yep.
now? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Nice,
He's on
okay,
now. Okay,
great.
awesome.
Oh, was I?
Yeah, he was talking to. We
You had
want
me
to
on silent.
I know. We want to keep you in the closet.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get started, okay, I know there's people in the audience that are probably going to have some questions. And, again, this is a live podcast. So you can actually, if you go on to Spreaker.com website, or you can download the Spreaker app, you can find the show, Stop Money Anxiety Now. Jump on the chat, type in the questions, and we can make sure that either Mike or us or field those questions for you, because your story is going to be really interesting, And before we get into the specific topic of stuff, tell us a little bit about how it came to be, because you weren't the founder of Village Runner.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
So I was working back when I was started out in 1989 working at the Village Runner as a sales associate, and basically by 1992 the current owner came in and she was just saying how burned out she was on the business. And so
right.
I was interested in business at the time, taking econ classes, I think at El Camino. And
oh, cool.
I basically just said, hey, if you ever want to sell, let me know.
So you're a local boy.
Local, yeah. I mean, I grew up West Torrance. Haven't really had any reason to leave. You look outside today. Why would you?
For those who can't see, who aren't local, true. It is absolutely...
Oh, yeah, that's true. This is radio.
Yeah.
It's very sunny, about 70 degrees.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday it was a little foggy all day,
Gloomy.
but then we actually had a photo shoot yesterday, which was like, ugh. And then today the sun's like brilliantly out, right?
It's great, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Why would you want to leave?
Exactly. So anyway, so the woman, her name was Cheryl, came in, I don't know, I'm going to say a month or two later, and just said, hey, were you serious about buying the store? And I mean, like I think I told you before, but beside the fact that I had to come up, I was making $8 an hour and had to come up with $60,000. I mean, I was all for it,
Right.
So anyway, I basically, at the time, partnered up with my brother, and we borrowed some money from friends and family, came up with the $60,000 and bought the place. As a matter of fact, this August 1st will be 25 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's a quarter of a century.
Yeah, I know.
That's like older than Jessica.
Yeah.
Almost.
Almost, yeah.
Just by a year. That's sneaky. Wait, so it was you and your brother bought the
at
business
the time,
together?
yeah. So
okay.
by 92. I think by 2000 I bought them out, and then
Cool.
And then around that time opened up bought a store out in Vegas, and then I think in 05 opened up my Manhattan location.
Oh, so Vegas was the next one before Manhattan.
Yeah, so Vegas was before Manhattan.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So two questions. Why? What made you want to buy out your brother? Like, what was okay? I want to do this by myself.
So
now.
I think I just we kind of got to a point. So he's actually a firefighter. So he wasn't necessarily doing it for the money. And I think it got to the point where I figured out I could do it on my own.
Nice.
And
You mean he didn't want to get in on making fireproof running shoes?
Yeah, well,
That's an idea.
Right?
Shoots.
Yeah, so that you can just like run into the fire.
There we go.
In appropriate gear.
They may have those. They just don't sell them at running stores. No.
And then, so why Vegas? Why?
So Vegas, I happened to be, I heard about the store through reps that the guy was looking to sell. So I just called him up one day, kind of sight unseen, to be honest with you. I think I had gone there once, so it wasn't totally. And I offered him $25,000 plus inventory. Without even really looking at his books, which in hindsight maybe wasn't the smartest thing ever, but I think the guy was very happy, and so, bought it.
We live and learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you didn't grow up learning about how to run a business, right?
No.
You just based it on working as an employee at Village Runner, seeing how, and then you decided, it's like an old school story of working from the mail. There was no mailroom there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but you worked up to basically owning the business.
Mm-hmm.
I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, I was like, even back when we were selling stuff as kids, going door to door, which is interesting because I'm not really that into like actual sales anymore, but I do like the ownership aspect of it, the marketing, the promotions, the accounting,
right?
Bookkeeping.
So the business in the beginning, before you bought it, she was stressed out. She probably didn't have a good lifestyle. She probably was managing something weird, and was probably making six figures at best.
Yeah, probably at best. I don't know that I was doing
like
that
low
well
six
then.
figures. Like it was probably 80,000, 90,000.
If that, like I think it was more. Quite honestly, in her case, I think it was more of a hobby, and just like she wasn't necessarily doing it for the money. And after a while, so here's an interesting thing to your point. I think part of the reason, and I had just closed my store in Vegas. Part of the reason I think I ended up buying her store off of hers because she had a store in Manhattan Beach that wasn't doing very well. And she, for whatever reason, waited way too long to close it, and I think just ended up getting like ruined financially. It just really, really hurt financially, and that's one thing I think I learned, from her experiences. Sometimes you just have to cut your losses. I mean, you got to like check your ego at the door. And just because if she would have, I may never have had the opportunity. It worked out for me because I had the opportunity to buy the store. But if she wouldn't have, lost money in Manhattan Beach for so long, she maybe could have salvaged Redondo. Because by the time I bought it, it was not doing great.
Right, basically stop the bleeding fast enough. Knowing when you're bleeding, that's the big thing.
Yeah,
I mean that could explain some of the real estate transactions I've done in my life where I learned to cut bait because I worked in an industry and I saw so many people hold on to bleeding properties for so long that they just destroyed. I mean, it's not like you're going to die, but it feels like you are. Right. And so basically, you took over a business that was on its way out, pretty much. Right.
Yeah. Wasn't that intimidating? Like what?
Not really, because so at the time I was still living at home, and I mean I kind of joke with people like I was only making $8 an hour, so I mean aside from the fact we had to pay back the loans and all that, I figured all I really needed was enough money for dollar drink nights. So it wasn't like I didn't have kids. I mean I probably wouldn't take
that behavior is still there. When there's a dollar drink, you want to get Mike to come in, have a dollar drink special.
There we go. Exactly. But no, so I wouldn't have, like nowadays there's been, there have been throughout the years other, opportunities I would say that I have passed on because I now have kids, a wife, a while back I sold my house recently, but a house payment, now, whatever, you have responsibilities now. That's one thing I would say that, a lot of people thought I was probably crazy or whatever, but quite honestly, I would say give it a go, go for it while you're young. I mean, your attitude's probably go for it whenever, but it's a lot easier to do when you don't have that much to lose, I guess, is my, or you at least don't perceive that having that much to lose.
Yeah, I think I just recently read in a book, this new book that I'm reading, it's by Felix Dennis, was recommended me by a peer of mine. It's called How to Make Money. It's such a cool, simple title, but the guy's like a multimillionaire. Oh, he quotes the GDP too. Just thought I'd let you know.
What's his name?
Felix Dennis. So what happened was he talks about fear, and that's like the number one reason why entrepreneurs don't succeed. And Shakespeare called it. What did he? Something I don't know the exact quote, but like something to the extent of unsuccessful people who lose in life, surround themselves with fear on a daily basis, whereas the valiant only experiences fear once, and that is at the point of death. Whoa. Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. I'm totally butchering that, but you guys, yes, something to that regard.
Yeah. Right? And what is it? Who was it? Leonardo da Vinci? Right? He had made like multiple inventions in like a numerous different amount of fields, and he had to fail until he
fearlessly.
And I feel like the amount of times that you try and fail, it widens, or it it gives you a better chance of finding that thing that you are going to succeed at. And at least you're creating those opportunities to do so.
There is something to the effect of like if you've never the easiest way to fail is to never if you never try it, you'll fail for sure.
Right.
You'll never be successful in business if you don't actually attempt to do a business.
Yeah, didn't Gretzky say something like that? It's like I miss 100% of the shots I never take.
Yep.
Yeah,
something like that.
we should write a book of all these quotes.
I know, we're
butchering these quotes.
But that's
just called winging it.
So as a reminder, I mean, already there's probably a few. If you're listening to this live, go ahead and post your questions in there because I think there's already we're full of questions here, and I know Mike's story, and I already have questions that I want. So if you have any questions, I'll make sure you jump on the Spreaker.com website, or you get the Spreaker app and then download it so you can get involved. We're going to be watching that.
Yeah, so you also put on the marathons here in the South Bay, right? Or is it just Redondo?
Put on a couple of 5K runs, 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day we just had, and then actually I've got the Armed Forces Day 5K
Right.
in Torrance coming up in about a month.
Yeah, this is the second year you're doing that.
Second year we're doing that one, yeah.
So what made you want to
remember.
start all the marathons?
So that about 24. Well, this will be the 24th annual, the 4th of July run, and they used to have a 5K over in Torrance, and I love the 4th of July, and I love running, and I own the local running store, so they quit having it. So I figured, why don't we put on?
So they stopped. Oh, so you just took it over?
Kind of took it over. Well, we changed it, moved it over to Redondo.
Okay.
And
were you always a runner?
Yeah, I mean, since like maybe 6th, 7th grade. I mean, I always like, the PE, like PE class. I was always the guy that everyone probably hated. That was like enjoyed actually running around the basketball court 20 times.
You're one of them.
Go 20 laps. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let me just kind of like bring to light, I mean, what you've accomplished, okay, that you so humbly don't ever really talk about. You've basically taken a business that was on its way out. You took it over, and you now built it to, at least from a gross revenue side, a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has been able to forge you a specific lifestyle to live close to the beach. We're practically neighbors, right? You're just up the street from me,
correct? Yeah.
Right, and it's been a journey in itself, and the lessons that you learned. So that's kind of what I want to ask you about, some of the lessons, especially the ones that you briefly mentioned, like when to cut bait, right? Or is that what it's called? Cut bait? When to cut?
Sure.
Okay,
that makes
I think
sense
so.
to
Yeah.
me.
Like
cut your losses.
Yeah, cut your losses.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the toughest things as an entrepreneur, especially if you're building things, that you acquire certain things that you take so much ownership behind it that it becomes almost like a baby.
Yeah.
And then realizing that what the best thing is for the business at the time is to cut your losses so that your business can actually grow. As opposed to what was happening to the previous owner, which was she held on to a location way too long, so it bled her dry to the point where she didn't even have the motivation or the energy to recover.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you could pick any of the instances in your life where you've actually done that, because I think a lot of what has helped you become as successful as you have been so far, and then you have other goals coming, but I mean, is the fact that you've been able to recognize over time, of course, that from her experience, your own experience, like, we should cut now, so that we can actually move forward. So that's why we like one step back to make two steps forward.
Sure.
Yeah. So tell us about a couple of.
Well, so I've had like throughout the the last 25 years, I've had multiple. I actually, believe it or not, owned a laundromat back in 2000.
What?
So I've like tried a lot of different stuff, right? And I always tell people the laundromat, if it was making, it was a lot of headaches, like, graffiti, floods, washers breaking down. Over in Torrance. It wasn't terrible, but it was Torrance Boulevard in Portola.
Oh.
But it wasn't,
Wait. Oh, okay, yeah.
So, just it wasn't terrible, but, a lot of theft and whatever. And I always tell people if that business was actually bringing in $5,000 a month and not $500 a month, I'd still own a laundromat. For $500 a month, it wasn't worth, like right now, literally, I'd be, I could be out playing golf or something. I'd be getting a call saying the floors are flooded. You got to come down and like deal with this, And like I said, for, everyone's got their breaking point, but for me, $5,000 a month, I could probably deal with that. But for like, or I would actually pay somebody to deal with it. But for $500 a month, I was like, so I just cut my losses. It was funny too, because that's why I say sometimes you need to check your ego at the door. Because I remember just driving home from the laundromat one day, just like, it's like, I have multiple businesses. I own a laundromat, and I own this, and I own that.
Right.
And I'm just like, now it's just like more common sense. I mean, if it's like, or even an event, I used to do like a Christmas run. It was losing like $10,000 a year, but I just kept doing it year after year. And I'm like, what am I thinking? I mean, I'm just throwing a $10,000 party every year. Right.
Which you probably would have been giving you more happiness than just throwing money.
Oh
away.
Exactly.
And that's a really important point here, that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first step into space, they don't realize how much attention they need to pay attention to what you mentioned earlier before we went live, cash flow, right? And making sure that you have cash flow. Correct. I mean, even to this day, my mentors and my teachers and even my godfather, who's like a billionaire, he goes, "What's your cash flow? That's all he cares about." Yeah, old school cash flow. And I'm like, okay, give me a moment. Let me pull up the reports. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important thing to, I think a lot of people don't know when to cut because they have no idea what they're making or what they're losing.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So how long did you have the laundry business until you?
Thinking I had it about 3 years. I'd have to double check my
Yeah,
numbers on
and
that, but
you know how like they have relationships like, oh, how long were you in the relationship? 5 years?
Yeah,
Is 4 years too long? You know?
yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Well, that's like a laundromat is like a boat owner. Do you ever hear the joke about a boat owner? The 2 happiest days of their life: the day they buy it and the day they sell it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends, because I have a client who she absolutely loves her boat. That's her that's her like getaway.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of boat owners who are like, "What's this a-hole talking about?"
I know, right? Well, this Felix Dennis guy, he talked about if it flies, floats, or has fun with you.
Yeah.
You're better off renting it than owning it, right?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of true, because if you have the money, you can rent anything you want.
Yeah.
And then, I think that's the big thing right now with Uber and Turo and all those different type of apps where Turo, do you know what Turo is?
I don't actually.
Turo is that app where you can actually rent other people's car locally to you.
Oh yeah.
So in our area, right?
Yeah.
You can rent Teslas, Porsches.
Oh, nice.
You can rent the top-notch cars.
Like Airbnb for cars.
Yeah, it totally is. And for how many days you want, they'll even deliver it to you wherever you are.
And then take an Uber back home.
And take an Uber back. That's what I was thinking.
Wow.
I was thinking of having my world be structured around Turo and Uber. Just to see what the cost difference is from.
Well, I know of somebody. It's a friend of mine, Jeff. He recently got rid of his car, and granted, he owns a few different properties and whatever in the area, and doesn't get out of the area much.
Is this the Jeff that I know?
I think so. Yeah, Jeff Ginsburg.
Yeah.
Okay, so he basically, his kids are older, so he can get away with this.
He lives like right here.
He lives right here, but he basically got rid of his car and did the math, and basically by Ubering everywhere, it's actually cheaper than having a car payment and insurance.
Yeah, there's a lot of case studies out there that have done that.
Yeah.
The problem that I have with me is that sometimes I like to entertain clients, drive myself to conferences, because I do a lot of speaking.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, yeah, if you have to go places like my kids have my one son has basketball tournaments in Anaheim like every other weekend, so that'd be tough to not have a car,
Yeah.
And I have a dog that likes to go on my car with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like, let me borrow a car and put a dog in it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's cool. So if you were to look back and, look at that particular laundromat thing, when do you think would have been a better idea? Did you cut off just at the right time, or could you have done it earlier?
I think I did. I mean, I ended up selling it and kind of getting out what I put into it. I mean, I look at it silver lining in pretty much most things that I've done. And then one thing about the laundromat that, I was not overly mechanical before I bought it. And once like my mechanics quit showing up, I finally just started buying like how to fix it, maintenance books, and I can actually fix a lot more things than I mean, financially it was at best a wash, but it is a good life experience.
Okay, so you actually did come out just right. So that was actually the perfect time for you to cut bait.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's just one instance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got a few.
Yeah. So
I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately.
Right. So as a result of doing that, what did that do? I mean, that experience, how did that help you in your next steps as an entrepreneur?
Well, I just think it helped me to, as an individual to grow. Like I keep using the cliche or whatever, it's like to check your ego at the door. I mean, when it comes to business and money and whatever, like quit. Who cares if you do all these events, and it just I think it helps you to be a little more mature financially. Like I'll actually look at, like, when another opportunity comes my way, I'll actually now look at the P&L or
right, the cap rate,
like great. I mean, it's all go. Take this thing on and end up. I mean, I've even had a few friends, and I'm total entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, I say go for it, right? But I've got a couple friends who I've actually talked out of doing stuff, because when we do sit down, and it's like this one friend was going to be at a gym like selling Gatorades and smoothies or something. By the time we did the math, I'm like, dude, you got to sell 200 Gatorades a day. I don't see this happening with the amount of people coming in.
Yeah.
So I think it just helps you to be a little more. I mean, I think that's a good thing. But then again, if I really thought that same way, 25, 26 years ago, I might not have bought the store that I'm in now. So
what was the X factor? What do you think helped you save that business and make it what it is today? I mean,
the Village Runner.
The Village Runner, yeah.
I think that I just really liked the business, and it actually, did well. I mean, my sister is considering like buying a business or starting a business, and I came up with a kind of a funny thing that I told her. I said, Sharon, I've actually owned two types of businesses in my life: one that makes money and one that doesn't. And I'll tell you right now, because they always talk about passion for what you do and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, it's cool to enjoy what you're doing, but you know what? I'll tell you right now, the business that makes money is the one you're going to like a lot better than the one that doesn't.
Right.
You know?
And so the key is like but what you did was you there's something that you liked about Village Runner. That's why you're working there and said, hey, I would like to buy this business.
Yeah.
And because you liked running, that totally made sense.
Yes.
So on some level, you basically shaped your life around not only doing what it is that you love or working in a niche that you love.
Yeah.
Which is demonstrated by all these events that you put on, the fact that you have people running every week, from Village Runner, and the fact that I see you running all time with brand new shoes every single time. It's kind of cool. You created, I think, really, I mean, to the point of what you were saying is that what saved that business was the fact that you just love running. I mean, you love it. Yeah. Right. So even though you're telling your sister-in-law.
Sister, yeah.
Your sister, that, make money, prioritize money over, what it is that you love. Yeah. We live in it.
You still want to love it, yeah.
You still got to love it.
Well, it helps. You still have to enjoy,
Right.
Like when I show up to work every day in my, like shorts and T-shirt, that's right.
And like you're showing up today in like boxers and a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? For those of you who know Mike, and I just gave you a visual.
Yeah, exactly.
Give him a little bit more credit than that.
No, he's got a T-shirt on. And he's actually got shoes on. He's usually in flip-flops. So he dressed up. He dressed up for the occasion.
I think I've only seen you in running shoes.
Yeah, it's been, today I should have had the flips, but when it's cold out, I throw I step it up.
He doesn't put it on his jacket. He just wears different shoes.
I have kind of a funny story about it, like just dressing up. I came home one day from a meeting with the city with at the time my kid was like 5, I think. I had my Doc Martens, my jeans, and my golf shirt on him. My 5-year-old looks at me and goes, "Oh, Daddy must have had an important meeting. He's all dressed up." I've trained you well, Mikey. I've trained you well.
Well, that's the beauty about the South Bay, right? It's just really non-assuming.
Yeah.
There's so many successful business people and entrepreneurs who live down here, but everyone's just so lax.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's really, there's something to be said about that. I mean, if you look at one of the wealthiest people in the world, Warren Buffett, I mean, if you didn't know what he looked like and who he was, and you met him in his hometown where he still lives, you have no idea that was who he was.
Oh, yeah.
Still
very
drives
unassuming,
old cars, lives in the same place and everything like that. I mean, my godfather, who was at the event where I spoke last week, he's a billionaire.
Yeah, wow.
And then, I look around the room, and it's so funny. At one point, it hit me. It's like, this guy is the wealthiest person in the room, and he looks like he looks borderline homeless. No, he's not homeless, but I mean, he's an older guy. I mean, he's in his 80s and stuff like that. He doesn't care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And he just gets up and wanders around, humming a song to himself, wandering the hallway, just grabbing things here, the tchotchkes and stuff like that, and just reading and still taking notes, even though he doesn't have to. He's taking notes on what people are saying, the speakers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting kind of seeing that dynamic, and, not to say there's anything wrong with people dressing up and, kind of representing their brand, but you just never know.
Guess it depends what your brand is. Yeah, I'm lucky enough to...
Well, exactly. That's why, one of my digital marketing company, I originally wanted to call it Beach Bum SEO.
Okay.
In fact, in a drunken state one night at a bar, I decided to buy the URL and I bought it, but I never used it. But
seriously, there's $100 you'll never get back.
Right, exactly. But it's Beach Bum SEO, so that our brand was to dress up like a beach bum.
Yeah,
which would have been cool. Board shorts and tank tops every day.
That'd be great,
right? Even in the dead of winter.
Well, it's California,
right?
I still have friends who just wear jeans and flip flops, and it's like 60 degrees at the coldest.
Right. So so back to you bringing the business to where it is today. I mean, really, it was a combination of your commitment, conviction to making something that you are passionate about work. I mean, trying to figure out a way to make it work. I mean, I'm sure there were times where you were like, especially early on in the business, where you're like, why am I doing this?
Not so much, really. I
really?
mean,
okay, cool.
We had a pretty good run, for...
Run, get it?
Yeah. I mean, right away, it actually, the improvement was great.
So what was that? What made it work right away?
I think there was a lot of room for improvement. I mean, for one thing, so when we bought it didn't have very much inventory, so we really just threw a lot of the money back in, because I was only, so I tell people sometimes, like, when I I went from making $8 an hour on what was it, August or July 31st, 1992, to owning the place and making $3 an hour on August 1st, right? And part of the reason for that, it's kind of not really a joke. I mean, I was probably putting 60, 70 hours a week and just not paying myself much.
Right.
But we put a lot of money back into the inventory to build the business.
Yeah.
Because really part of the reason the store was struggling at the time was just not enough inventory. I mean, a lack of inventory is a kiss of death in retail. I mean, once you start getting put on credit hold and, which was, I'm talking about the previous.
Right.
But yeah, when you start having issues with credit hold and you can't get the product. I mean, you're done. I mean, people come in and you only have one or two shoes of a certain style. Yeah. So we really just put a lot of money back into the business, which I think helped us, grow.
And how did you know to do that? I mean,
I think partly was from just experience of working there. Like it was a total nightmare, to be honest with you, when you're working there, and it's like as a salesperson and people. So I that's one good thing about having been a salesperson. So with my guys, I understand it. Like if I can't blame them if they're not selling stuff that we don't have. People come in and say, "Hey, I want to buy the Nike." Whatever, the Nike Free in size 10, and it's like we haven't had a size 10 in 4 months. I mean, after a while, the staff just kind of would probably give up. But so I always try to make sure, and I even have the question with them. I mean, that being said, you have to make sure you have a healthy level of inventory. But I'll just say, I can tell by looking at the inventory levels if we're a little high. But I mean, I'll ask them, are we missing sales? I mean, is there anything we're too light on, or So you just kind of got to stay on top of that. And,
I think it's amazing, just kind of like that's all it took. Yeah. That's all it took to kind of really get things going again, because people were obviously going in. I mean, how long was it around before you took it over?
I think it started in 84, so about 8 years.
Wow. Okay, so the name and the brand was visible. I mean, people knew it existed. Yeah. And then all they needed was to have one person come in and say, "Oh yeah, we have that in stock."
Yeah, it was well that, and then cutting back the expenses were minimal because I pretty much we pretty much worked most of the hours. I didn't have really much staff, no managers and whatever. So that's the thing too. A lot of times businesses, as they they grow, you start all of a sudden you got the your manager for this store, your manager for that store, and that's starts getting a little crazy with the expenses.
Yeah, no. Recently we did some massive expansion in terms of bringing more people onto the team, and we definitely saw a hit on our numbers, and we also recognize it's temporary because when you expand that way, and if you do it right, it's designed to help your business expand and scale, and grow quicker, which is probably what happened when you started.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't need a Manhattan Beach. I wouldn't have a Manhattan store if I didn't have somebody to. You
mean you can't run back and forth?
Yeah, I could, but I'd prefer not to.
Right.
Well, I think the interesting thing about running shoes specifically is that. With retail nowadays, it's really hard for, in stores to be competing with online stores. Yeah. But I feel like with running shoes, you want to make certain that those are comfortable and you want to be able to go in and try those on. And so I'm just thinking, wow, throughout the years, you've been able to not, expand to Manhattan Beach as well. And I'm just thinking, how does that? But it's just the product itself. Like people want to try them on.
I think, they do.
And even though Zappos kind of proved the model of how the Zappos, they started by just putting up a website to see if anybody would buy shoes online. Yeah. And then they had a guy literally run to the store, buy shoes, wrap it up, and send it just to see, and just to prove a model to see if it would work before they actually even stepped into kind of Frankenstein the process together to prove the concept. Yeah. And I think what you did, your approach, I mean, I think, there's a hidden gemstone in that particular part of your story, which is for people who are wondering whether or not something is going to work. I mean, you worked within it. Yeah. So you could see the ins and outs of what was working, what wasn't working, and you paid attention.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I know the Gyukaku concept, which is the Japanese barbecue place that's over here in the South Bay, and they're actually all over the world now. Yeah. People don't know. My sister and I worked in exporting the very first one outside of Japan over here in West LA. And my training program, what I helped establish, is kind of like the national training program for that whole entire worldwide franchise. Yeah. Which is really cool. What they've done, the owner, before he started it, he wanted to create a McDonald's version of Korean barbecue and make it Japanese barbecue style. Wow. How do we make it efficient? Because he thought the processes, because McDonald's at the end of the day is more of a business than a restaurant. Yeah. Right? And so he actually went and worked there.
Okay.
He worked there and he paid attention to all that.
At McDonald's?
At McDonald's.
Whoa.
You know, this is a Loyola Marymount graduate, international student, very smart dude.
Yeah.
And he went there and worked there after school just to kind of understand, to learn how to utilize the processes. So I think what also helped a lot was the fact that you were in the business, but you were paying attention.
Yes.
So, you know, I think like a lot of people on this planet who are thinking about entrepreneurship that think they don't know enough and have been working in their lives probably don't realize they know more than they think. Yeah. Simply by just paying attention to what they've experienced thus far.
Oh, yeah. And I've had employees, you know, a ton of employees throughout the years. And there are some who I think could probably take over day one and do really well, and others who, you know, maybe not so much, right?
Right. Each cog has its own role, right?
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
and then even just the initiative that certain people have versus not, you know, I mean, it takes a little bit of initiative, obviously, to do your own thing.
Right. So let's, you know, again, I mean, if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and punch into the chat here. And then later on, after it's done, of course, you can always still comment. But while Mike is here, definitely ask so that we can get those questions asked, because I think there's a lot of amazing little gemstones here for almost every entrepreneur, because you're probably going to be talking. Now, there's a couple more stories I would love for you to share that would probably touch on some of the fears that people have and how you navigated through it. You know, what's something that was really kind of like, you know, that one of those take a step back so you can take, was one of the most difficult, you know, things that you had to do in the time that you've been an entrepreneur, in terms of what you had to cut. Sure. You know, like you're saying, the ego thing and all that stuff. What was the most difficult thing that you've had to do?
Well, I don't know if it was totally difficult, because it was based more upon, you know, necessity, but it definitely, once again, kind of checking the ego at the door. Was we sold our house back in June
last year,
yeah. Okay. And I just kind of like, you know, I think I called my wife one day and said, unless I missed the memo that we're making $300,000 a year, something's got to give. You know, we got to cut. You know, our cash flow was not good at the time, and we bought a house locally, and probably for the first time purchase, you know, we probably bit off a little more than we could chew.
Right.
And so, you know, I haven't really missed a beat, because we essentially live a half a mile from where we were. We're just currently renting versus owning.
Right.
And you know, so that was, you know, interestingly, it really wasn't that hard for me to do. Partly because I had, you know, I just kind of felt that I had to do it at the time we did it.
Right. And as a result, how's that helped?
It's been much better. I mean, the money anxiety thing, it's interesting when you. So I always tell people, like, my kids in particular, it's all kind of like financially, you know, business probably, and more so from a personal standpoint, it's all about living within your means, right?
Right.
So I just use the analogy, and I don't even know if these numbers are exactly right, or the example of MC Hammer. I always say he made $100 million one year, but he spent 120. So guess what? He was bankrupt.
Right.
Right. So, you know, whether even if you make $200,000 a year and you spend $250, you got a problem. If you make $50,000 a year and you spend $40,000, then life is probably good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there definitely is that sweet spot, you know, of where you're living just enough so that it basically inspires you to continue to push and grow, because you get a taste, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I had a client that was making years ago was making $1 million, spending 1.2. Yeah. Yeah. You know, kind of like the 120.
Correct.
And I had another client that came from the same resource in terms of referrals. Yeah. And he had a different set of money anxiety, but he was making $80,000, and he was spending $40,000 a year. Yeah. $40,000. So he was cash rich in terms of that. So from on the books, he was actually wealthier than the guy who was spending 1.2 million, even though he was bringing $1 million a year.
Oh yeah, yeah,
right. And so I think this is a really fascinating thing to kind of pay attention to. That entrepreneurs, you have to pay attention to that. Yeah, you know, it's one thing to say, okay, cool, I make this and I spend this, and because I know I'm going to create more. Yeah, but there is a sweet spot to find.
You have to be careful fast track and do the. I always used to joke with my life. It's like we've kind of fast forwarded to the lifestyle we want. Now we have to catch up and pay for it. You know, right? It's like, you know, life is great. I love the house. Love the first house I bought. You know, I love where I live, whatever. But I'm kind of like, even when we bought, I was kind of like, okay, you know, it's like stated income and all that good stuff. It's like you can afford whatever, right? Or you can not afford whatever, but you can, you know. you can get whatever loan you want. But I think, even getting into it, I mean, we were renting on Avenue E for like $1,600 a month, and I think by the time I looked at property taxes and whatever, looking at closer to like $5,000 a month to buy, and I was like, in hindsight, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but in hindsight, I probably would.
Well, if you were a single guy, it's totally doable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's why for those who are single and entrepreneurs, stuff like that, okay, keep in mind that Mike had a whole family to feed.
Yeah.
Right. You had your wife, you had your kids, and everything like that. Take that into consideration. So living within your means also means the people that you're actually supporting, the mouths that you're feeding. Right.
Yeah.
In my particular case, I have my dog.
Yeah.
She's basically your daughter.
She's basically my daughter. How
much is college for the dog? No,
I know, right? But my extended family would be the people on my team that I also consider, taking into account, like, okay, I have these other mouths to feed as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, the means is, sure, I could take all the profits and just put it on my lifestyle, but I have to also take that into consideration.
Put it back.
Yeah. So I think those, and a lot of people, it's funny because. Part of what keeps people from doing that is like, oh, what will people say? What will people think?
Yeah.
And I know you, Mike. I've known you for a while. You don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
you go.
No, and that's why it was quite honestly really, really easy. And I flat out just tell people my story. It's like people are even like, "Why'd you sell? That's a great." And I didn't sell because I wanted to. I kind of had to. And it's like, is what it is.
So let me ask you this: what would you say? How dangerous is it to really care more about what people say than what really makes sense?
Oh, it's very dangerous.
Right? Because I'm sure you've seen, what would you say to people who actually are still stuck in that point? They're on the precipice of making a decision for their business, and they find themselves more worried about what the world thinks or what the public thinks than what really makes sense for their lifestyle, their business, the people that they love and care about.
Yeah, I think you just need to do what's best for yourself and for your business and not worry about, if you worried about what other people think, I'd still own the house and be like just not
miserable.
It's not good. It's not good,
right? And how has that helped the business now that you made that decision in June? What have you seen different in your business?
So it's been good. It's just been helped to it's kind of freed up the cash flow, and so we've been throwing a little more money at marketing and promotions, doing some Facebook, some more social media stuff, and all that.
Cool.
And hopefully that's gonna it's not quite, stuff takes a little while, but hopefully we'll see a little bounce.
And that's a new thing for the Village Runner, because you guys never really kind of like...
Not so much, We've definitely added to that. For the St. Patrick's Day run, I just added a pretty big social media push, and I think our number of runners was up about 20%. So,
nice.
So we'll see how that goes for 4th of July.
Yeah, so what does that translate to? Because that's another revenue for you, stream, hosting these things. So a 20% increase.
So a 20% increase is that's at like $35 a runner. That's like an additional $7,000. So.
Additional $7,000. Right.
Yeah, so there was the expense of I'm hoping that the increase of 30% in runners for the 4th of July, which is more of a 20% increase in that would be more like 700 runners, which would be more like $22,000.
$22,000. So that's significant.
It is significant, and it's actually So it's freeing up money to hopefully
to do those types of things.
And then
So literally, taking one step back has allowed you to literally increase your revenue.
Correct.
And not just because you freed up capital, but because that capital has now been, that energy can be redirected towards something that actually helps the business grow.
Yes.
Which means that if you do want to buy that house back later, you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's definitely not out of the realm of reality. It's just like getting, kind of getting the cash flow back in order.
So what's so amazing is that despite being in business for 25 years, because I know a lot of people who've been in business for 10 years, they just stop learning. They stop paying attention to things. Yet you are still embracing new things and learning new things to help your business continue.
Well, there's always the goal of, there's like when it comes to cash flow, you either, or lack thereof, or living within your means. Like people who don't live within their means or they have problems, I always say you're either spending too much or you're not making enough. In many cases, it's usually both. Right. So the key would be which we did by selling the house, is to reduce the the expenditures. And then I've always dealt with different business consultants and this and that. And there's always, obviously the goal is to always figure out a way to, like, when you're an entrepreneur in businesses and different business ventures, to make more.
Yeah. And how did you know to do that? I mean, what was ultimate? Because I'm sure you were ruminating around that. I think when we first met, we were already talking about your overhead and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What ultimately, I mean, did you talk to mentors? Did you talk to friends? Who was your little administrative cabinet that helped you?
I did have a business consultant, and then I have a few friends who are very successful, and just kind of listen to them. And as you say, we're pretty much always learning. I mean, you can't you want to listen to people who, preferably successful people,
right? People we respect, and we're surrounded by a lot of those people. I mean, even in our own building and stuff like that, we're surrounded by a lot of those types of people.
And there's a lot. Yeah, a lot of times you can, if you're a good listener, you could sit down. I mean, doctors, lawyers, whatever. You can sit down with somebody at the Redondo Beach Brewery and get a lot of free advice,
right?
Yeah,
because this area just kind of has that,
or at least for the cost of a drink. No.
Yeah, exactly. Dollar special.
Yeah,
you get more than that, right?
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Right?
Like a sit down with like local professionals here in Redondo.
Yeah, I mean, we used to do that all the time. Remember I told you we used to do this mastermind where drink, 6-figure mastermind. Remember I said, for you to come by sometime. But but then I got busy, and so I stopped doing it.
Yeah. No, it is amazing though. Like, so I have a few friends who are attorneys and whatever, and it's amazing how much free advice you can get over a 12-pack of Coors Light. Right? They like the cheap stuff.
So the reason why Mike drinks is so that he can invite people over to get
all these
exactly.
To glean like gemstones of knowledge off these amazing people, right?
Good tactic.
The doctors. It's like no.
You'd be surprised. Other people, they make deals on the golf course. He makes it over a pack of beers.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. I like it.
It's cost efficient. Very cost efficient.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have a few minutes left. I want to give you an opportunity to, for those who are local or those who even want to come by and visit and kind of like, Village Runner is in the Redondo Beach area, the Village, and the Village Runner also, there's one in Manhattan Village area, I guess.
That's correct.
And so tell us, what's one way that they can engage? I mean, I think you have a little special because you've been on the show, and this is like,
so if they come in, they can get $10 off any shoe purchase if they mention the show.
Oh, cool. So do you guys hear that, audience? And it doesn't matter when they hear the show, right? I mean, because this is recorded, it's going to be on iTunes and everything like that.
Yeah, I'll just make sure my employees, staff know that when they come in, they're not looking at them with
and we'll
blank,
give you the graphics
stare.
And everything so that you can put the graphics in there. It's like, hey, listen to the show, mention the show, Stop Money Anxiety Now, right? And episode number 5, which is the one that you're on, they can get $10 off.
Yeah.
Can I get $10 off if I mention the show?
Don't you already?
I don't know.
Well, now he knows.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, now you know. Yeah.
I'll just go knock on a door off.
There we go.
A 12-pack. Give me a shoe.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want another shoe, get another 12-pack so you can get the right shoe.
Yeah, exactly.
So awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this because I know, that you're not one to really kind of step out of into the light, so to speak, the limelight, and I think there's so many different layers to all the different stories that you shared today. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing that. Even though, I see you every day. Coming in and out. But I thought, God, Mike would be great because your stories that you've shared over the drinks that we've had has just been like, oh my God, and I'm always paying attention to that because I think every entrepreneur. No matter how long you've been in business, you always bring something brilliant to the table. Just on your own experience, the stories that you have. I know there's a lot more stories, and maybe if you feel so inclined, a little bit further on down the road, I'd like to check in and maybe have you back on the show to kind of see where you are, because I'm sure people hearing the show where you are now, and seeing the progression from when you're like when you buy your next house, maybe we'll have that show.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. So. Is there anything else if there's one thing that that you could impart on someone who's thinking about maybe embarking on an adventure similar to yours, maybe taking over a business or buying a retail outlet, or you're at a point where you're looking to cut bait and kind of to save the business, what are a few things that you would say, like if someone came to me and seeking you as a mentor, what would be some of the things that you would?
Well, one thing we didn't really touch on that I love about what I've done for the past 25 years of my life. And I think I even told this to my kids about 10 or 15 years. And I said I never really realized this when I bought the store, but it was like something that I really bought was my freedom.
Yeah.
Right. Because like if my kids, for example, have a basketball tournament or something next week and I need to go, I can actually, because I've got everything running pretty smoothly, I can actually go. So I'm not really, I think it's just been something that I kind of stumbled across. I didn't know when I got into it as I actually kind of bought my freedom. I have, like, especially with the schedule,
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know if that's really what you asked me, but
I think that's great because that is probably what has, once you discovered that, when did you realize that that's what you ended up having?
I think it's probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 years in.
So 10 years in. Right?
Yeah, maybe 10. I think it's something that I really, at this point, that I definitely do not take for granted. Like if I ever, I always joke around, it's like if all else fails, I'll go get a real job. In the meantime, I'll stick with the freedom. It's not all roses, right? As anyone knows who owns a business. I mean, you have your ups and downs and whatever. But I just think the freedom aspect of it is neat.
I think that is one of the biggest reasons what keeps a lot of entrepreneurs in, me included. I mean, just having freedom. Yeah. When I first started working with my coach, she goes, your biggest driving factor is your freedom. I was like, oh yeah, and we don't realize how important that is to us. Had you realized that 10 years earlier, do you think that would have impacted on where you would be today?
Not so much.
Right.
I don't think so.
It was part of your journey to kind of realize that.
I think so.
So you can actually appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it was just more probably rather than realizing it, actually appreciating it. I probably always kind of knew it, but
Yeah. And so it actually came to reality that you have that freedom.
Just like this is actually pretty cool, like to be able to show up to work in shorts and a t-shirt and kind of.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The pack of beers.
Right,
yeah, exactly.
Get a pack of beers and just, you basically call it shot. I mean, that's really what that freedom is all about, right? And also be able to take care of your loved ones when they need it. I mean, push comes to shove, you can just drop and go without having to worry about.
Oh yeah, seriously. Like tomorrow, I mean, rarely do I have, like, if I had a really important meeting with the city or something. But like tomorrow, if something came up where whatever my kids needed me to do something, I could at this point, take the day off, and go do. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not, tomorrow night not getting my work done at 2 a.m. or whatever.
But at least you have the freedom to do so.
Yeah,
you don't have to check in, check out anywhere.
Correct.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's a really, really important piece that we never stop appreciating and having gratitude for, especially as an entrepreneur. Yeah. If you're looking for a reason why you're doing what you're doing, let that be the first thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And there is one thing. So to answer your question as well, one thing I think it was the E-Myth that I read years ago, which is part of the whole freedom thing is that like that you're supposed to run your business isn't supposed to run you.
Right.
And that's like the greatest thing for me, because like I think part of the reason I was able to expand and do the events and do the multiple stores is because like if your business is running you're probably, let's say if you're in retail or a liquor store or whatever, you're in there all day. Yeah. And if you can't get away, like people sometimes say, why aren't you in your stores all the time? It's like, well, when I had 3 for that matter, I couldn't be in 3 places at once. But also because I'm running my businesses, they aren't running me.
Right. It's like
so that kind of helps you, part of your freedom as well. Because if your business is running you, then you're not really free.
Well, I tell people all the time that's how you transition from being a wantrepreneur to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is basically when you start leveraging your business to create more freedom and time.
Yeah.
The more successful you are, the more time you have. That's the true mark of a true entrepreneur. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just being a wantrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with that, because everybody starts off as a wantrepreneur. Yeah. Right? Because when you first started, you're working 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah, correct.
Right? Maybe 80. Yeah. And then you transition.
You're hoping to, within, maybe 5 years, kind of be over the 60, 70 hours a week.
Right, exactly.
To each their own.
And then it's worth it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, awesome. So if you want to connect with Mike, you can find him on Facebook. You can also find the Village Runner also on Facebook, right? Just Village Runner.
Yeah.
What's the address on Catalina? It's
1811
Catalina, 90277.
That's correct.
Redondo Beach. And in Manhattan, it's on
Sepulveda. It's 1840 Sepulveda.
1840 Sepulveda. So come by Village Runner, either Manhattan Beach or Redondo Beach, mention this show, Stop Money Anxiety, I get $10.
Yeah.
And there's no limit. You can buy as many shoes as you want for $10 off, right?
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much again for being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
And join us next week for another cool Stop Money Anxiety piece. Make sure you like us, subscribe to podcast, iTunes podcast, and listen to the show. You can download it and keep it on your phone and listen to Mike forever. Or you can just subscribe to us on Spreaker. Either way, you can find everything, all the resources at the Six Figure Academy. .com/radio. So that's pretty much it, and we are signing off. So thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much for coming by and joining us for today, and join us next week for another episode of Stop Money Anxiety.
See you guys next week.
All right, bye.